Welcome to Interesting Enough. He is Trey. I am Nolan. Thank you guys so much for joining us once again. If this is your very first time listening to the podcast, thank you very much. Go ahead and give us a like, subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, pretty much all the platforms you can think of. So we can't thank you enough. Trey, man, what's going on? How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. You know what I'm saying? Watching some good basketball this weekend, so that always makes it better.
Yeah, we wanted to really dedicate this to some basketball. So we talk about a tournament in a second, but as we're recording this, the NBA season is about to end in a week or so. So there's a lot of things to think about when in regards to the end of the season. So maybe you want to touch on that at the end of the podcast. But let's just start with the LSU Iowa game because everybody was watching it last night. Okay, everybody. I'll tee this out. Everybody was watching it last night. Everybody listening to this podcast was. You and I were. We were texting about it. A lot of different angles we can go with this conversation. But let's just react to the game first. Just give me your thoughts. I'm not even going. I don't even want to tee it up anyway because I do have thoughts on the game. But how are you feeling just maybe during the game and then of course after?
Man, and I don't want to sound sexist when I say this, but there might be one of the best, if not the best, women's games I've ever seen. And it's one of the better basketball games I've seen, but it legitimately might be the best women's game I've ever seen. I mean, the stars they showed out. Angel Reese had a really good game. Unfortunately, she did twist her ankle. I think that was like in the second quarter,
Yeah.
but she still played well, all things considered. And then Caitlin Clark. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. She answered the call. Like at first, I thought, oh, she's going to be a little tight and a little bit nervous. She might not be hitting all her shots, but she ended up with 40 points, and she was just phenomenal. Like I don't know what else to say about her.
Well, I don't know if it's the greatest game ever, women's game, because I don't know if I have enough of knowledge to say that either. But
No, no, no. But I'm saying that I saw. I'm not saying like in general.
just that you saw. Okay, yeah, no, it's fair, fair.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't have enough knowledge to say all that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What I will say in terms of the game, it lived up to the hype. That I think that's all we really wanted. Everybody was looking forward to this matchup, and it lived up to the hype. LSU had it coming though, because they had struggled in a couple of tournament games coming into this. Iowa was kind of rolling. Caitlin Clark in Iowa was looking to get that revenge from LSU from last year. Now I know Caitlin and Angel, they're cool and they kept it all chill. Trey, they ain't gonna fool me. They not gonna fool me. They are not cool like that. I'm not saying that they hate each other. I'm sure the media does more than that. But like Caitlyn remembers them waving at her and putting the ring finger up and all of that stuff. It was up for smoke. And you know how I feel about Haley Van Lee. They left her out on the island, Trey. I don't know what Kim Mulkey was doing. You can't leave the 5'7" guard out there against Caitlyn.
Why?
She was getting cooked. I don't know what the strategy is. We're gonna see it in the Final Four going forward, but you've acknowledged how great of a passer she is. I'm gonna just have to see 15 assists, I guess, because we gonna have to trap off the ball screen or something. Because this drop coverage or whatever they was playing, it ain't gonna work against Caitlin Clark, man. Especially when she firing like that, it's not gonna work. I don't know what that defensive coverage was. I give Angel Reese and the crew credit because she kept them in the game with her presence. I was relating it to the Draymond Green. I think that's how she played, just controlling the tempo on both ends of the floor, being a defensive presence. But I really think the Magic, and people don't talk about this a lot, the Magic at LSU is really Flage, Trey. When Flage get going,
Yes.
she's the one, like the bucket getter and stuff. And I think she was a freshman last year. She was coming onto the scene early. She's the one. And I'm sure I don't know if she's going to the league or not. She may be staying. I think we're gonna see her take a big leap and be the main girl on that squad because when she gets going, she has a real WNBA offensive game. And I like watching her get going after, but the game was exactly what we wanted it to be. And now Caitlin's gonna be going to the Final Four. I mean, let's shift it to the LSU side because there was a lot of talk after the game with Angel Reese, and I know she was getting emotional about the pressure she has on her. So I feel like we should at least touch on that. Let me just give my thoughts real quick first, Trey.
Oh, take off.
I thought a lot about this, and I feel like this is a common cycle when we villainize somebody. This cycle comes back around where I think it was just very obvious that Angel Reese didn't want to be the villain, but she was thrust into this villain role. Now, some of it was her doing, so I'm not gonna like excuse her of it, but let me put it to you this way. Because Angel's young and she's in the moment, I don't think she's gonna realize. some of the things that she could have done differently to not enhance being a villain. But I don't think it's completely her fault. That's the point I want to portray across him. Like, I don't think it's completely her fault. She may look back in a couple years and be like, "Hey, I could have done some things differently." But we've seen this before. We saw this with LeBron. We've seen this with a number of other athletes when they are thrust into this villain role. Some embrace it more than others, but she definitely embraced it, and it obviously it took a toll on her. I know she was trying to probably keep the brave face, like she said, but it's tough. The only thing I do want to say is it's going to be tough for people to receive that message when you were doing a lot of things when you were winning and celebrating and being overt about it. So when you're losing, sometimes people are going to say they're not going to hear it. I'm gonna be on the side of Angel Reese in this scenario. I'm gonna side on this is a young kid, this is a young team, and the person I'm the most critical of is it ain't like their leader's the most mature person in the world to begin with when their coach is Kim Mulkey, and y'all know how I feel about Kim Mulkey at this point. So it was tough to see Angel Reese in that moment. I hope she can build upon that moment and continue to strive to be great in basketball and in life because I think she's got definitely got a lot of things going for her in that direction. But yeah, man, that was a tough scene. So overall, Trey, my thoughts is just the same. I mean, I feel how I feel about Angel Reese. I think there's some things she could change and not, but I still want to see her have success. And by the way, I'm not going to play the card between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. They're both kind of demonstrative and loud when they're on the court. So I hold them in the same esteem in that regard. Sometimes they're both a little annoying on my end, but again, they're kids. I'm letting them do what they do.
I'll honestly kind of back up your sentiment, and I will admit to begin with that injuries, as you said, she did do some things that didn't really help her case as far as being the villain and being villainized and having people kind of attacking her. She didn't necessarily help herself in all those scenarios, but I mean the death threats and the things like that. I think we've talked about it before when kickers miss a field goal or crucial field goal. The death threats that people send to them, like that's just ridiculous. Come on now.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy.
That's yeah, like I don't even know what to tell you about it. Like that's just crazy. And I do want to add that I think we've had some like talks off of the podcast about this, but I will admit too, I just think a lot of it has to do with sports betting. If I put $20 on Angel Reese, but she doesn't win the game, or LSU doesn't win the game, then I'm upset and I'm more likely to say some negative things. So I think that doesn't help her case either.
Well, and also, I just think it's a perfect storm of a lot of fuel to the fire. Anytime there's two athletes that are, let's just call it what it is. You got one black athlete that's on a great team. You got another white athlete that's on a great team. One from one neck of the woods, one from the other neck of the woods. Right? People are going to make that natural comparison. We did it with Magic and Larry Bird. Right? I mean, we can go down the line of what we've done this for.
Can I say something?
I think the thing that added fuel to the fire is like when you get the people that are popular, like the Dave Portnoy's, that is completely vilifying Angel Reese last year for being demonstrative, yet is the complete opposite when it comes to Caitlin Clark and does not acknowledge her doing literally some of the same exact things and demonstrative things on the court as well. So when you get stuff like that, when you get people that have that much of an influence, and I'm just using him as an example, there were other people, but that added a lot of fuel to the fire that didn't even need to be there from adults that we expect to be more mature in these situations. And then again, your leader, usually the coach is the person you want to rein you in, right? And to keep you grounded is Kim Mulkey, who is in press conferences completely complaining about reporters and and saying that she's getting threatened and threatening them back and players are getting into a fight on the court and she's like, I wish they would pick on somebody her own size. I mean, like, what are we talking about? It's not like you're getting the greatest guidance in the world. Now, I'm not with Kim Mulkey or Angel Reese on a daily basis, but from what Kim Mulkey portrays, I can only imagine what she's telling these girls when it's not in front of a camera.
I mean, yeah, I second all that. Kim Mulkey probably is not the greatest leader from everything I've seen in the public light. So I don't think that helps in any scenario. But at the end of the day, I think injuries. I just think that Caitlin Clark, she's America's sweetheart as far as the women's college basketball goes, and I think a lot of it also has to do with that she dethroned America's sweetheart last year. So a lot of people just don't like her for that reason alone.
Well, America's sweetheart about to get dethroned by South Carolina, Trey. So they better buckle up for that. Okay, and on the other end, let's talk a little bit about. I want to talk about USC, UConn, because I actually thought that actually was actually a really really good game, and I know you probably watched it. I stayed up late for it on the East Coast. Let me just say something real quick, Trey. Juju, Juju Watkins, and I text y'all this. I didn't know that she was getting trained by Phil Handy. Because I'm looking at him like, well, how is her game just this smooth? This is crazy, even as a freshman. Like, you just don't see a lot of freshmen. I'm talking about girl or guy be this smooth. I'm like, okay, she's being trained by Phil Handy. For those who don't know, he's an assistant coach for the Lakers. He's trained the likes of Kobe, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron, you name it. He's trained them. So that's why Juju Watkins is really, really smooth. She's been training with him since he's a kid. And of course, her like working hard and being talented and stuff.
I
Trey,
mean,
I've been evident real quick. I've been evident. I told you Maya Moore is the best basketball player I've ever women's basketball player I've ever seen, smoothest basketball player I've ever seen. She got that Maya Moore game, Trey. She got that Maya Moore game. I know it's in a loss, but she's coming. I feel like I gotta acknowledge that first. What do you think about Juju and her game?
Juju, like she had a phenomenal game, and I think you have to keep in mind that she is a freshman, so everything you're saying, this is her first time on this biggest stage, and she delivered. I mean, she had a great game last night, and not in disrespect to other players, but to me, there was a stark difference between this USC team and UConn team as far as depth went. Like
Yeah.
UConn, that starting five was amazing, while USC, it seemed like a lot of it was just Juju, and like that's no disrespect to the other players, but it just didn't seem like they were at the same level as UConn starting five. So I don't think that did her any favors.
Well, and let's be fair too. I'm sure you heard on the broadcast. USC was not a very good team last year. Like, they weren't a
No.
very good team. I don't even think they made the tournament last year. And Juju gets there, and they're what? What did they only lose 5 games this year or something like that? So she's completely taken over the program. She could have went to any school in the country, and she's decided to stay home and go to USC, and she completely transformed the program. I don't even know if she needs to come back. She should just really go to the WNBA. But if she's going to come back, she's going to be a force to be reckoned with. But Paige is the story that we gotta highlight, because for those who are just now paying attention to college basketball on the women's side, Paige was essentially Caitlin before Caitlin. Now her game looks a little bit different in terms of, I would say, and you probably agree with this, Trey. She probably plays more like Sabrina Ionescu with like the all around game. She can shoot, pass it, rebound, do a bunch of stuff. She's not launching 40-footers like Caitlin Clark, but she was that hype, right? Like that 5-star, that number one player in the country. She had a couple injuries. Obviously, she led them to the Final Four in the past. I'm glad to see her redemption story. And I think people have kind of forgot. And I think this is a perfect stage for her to be on the Final Four and get the just due that she deserves.
I mean, Paige, there's times this year, and I know this is going to sound crazy now that obviously Caitlin just came off of that 40-point game, but there's times this year when I have thought to myself that Paige might be the best women's basketball player in the nation.
That's not a crazy take.
College.
Not a crazy take if
Yeah.
you watch the games.
I think she's a phenomenal player. And like you said, you have to emphasize, I don't think she's as shot hungry as Caitlin. I'm not trying to say Caitlin's a ball hog or, anything of that nature, but I just think that that Paige might be a more well-rounded player. I think she might even be a little bit better in the defensive end, even though she's about 2 or 3 inches shorter. I
Yep.
mean, I just love the way she plays. And like you said, she's coming off an ACL tear where she missed all of last year, and she's looked amazing this year. And I don't have anything bad to say about her. Like I think this UConn team, I picked Iowa to win it all, but I think this UConn team is hitting this stride at the right point this year. And I think that they are a betting favorite at this point to win it all.
It's going to be tough to beat, for any of them to beat South Carolina, if I'm being honest, because that team is just a juggernaut when you got to deal with Cardosa. But we were talking about, I want to adopt the WNBA team. I haven't talked about this on the podcast, but I want to adopt the WNBA team and start cheering for a team specifically. I just think it's important. So this point was brought to my attention, Trey. I don't know what team I'm going to pick, but I might have to go just do like the casual fan and just ride for the player, and whatever team they get drafted to, I'm going to just cheer for them, because you talk about a great year for the WNBA draft. I mean, when you talk about Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark,
Well,
Cameron
hold on, let
Brink.
me stop you real quick. Pace,
Mhm.
at least a couple months ago in senior night, she said that she's going to come back to college for one more year.
Oh, she did say it for sure?
Yes. Again, things can change. If they win it all,
Okay.
I mean, she might change her mind, but she did say that.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's important. So let's just say within the next 2 years, you're going to have a league where you having Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark. I like Cameron Brink. A lot of people don't know her from Stanford. She was great this year. Juju Watkins is probably going to be in the league. I mean, I don't know if there's been this much of an influx of talent that's going to be all coming together. And this is still pairing with the Sabrina Ionescu's and Asia Wilsons, who have now been in the league for a couple years. There's going to be so much talent in the WNBA. I don't know if there's ever been a time that we're going to look and be like this. There's been this much talent at once. Like we've seen great players here and there, but like we may look. There's 12 teams in the WNBA. All 12 teams might have a real legitimate superstar or star player. Like that's how loaded this league is going to be. So I think the league is in good hands when it comes to that. But I'm excited for the Final Four even more than the men's. But I feel like we should at least mention the men's. Purdue got through. Trey, they're in the Final Four. I know we always expect them to get upset, but they got through. Do you have any expectations of them winning it all? Because UConn on the other end is just a juggernaut. I mean, I feel like Purdue if UConn is going to go down, I feel like Purdue would be the team to do it. Just because you got Zach Edey in the middle. Do you see the other two teams with any type of shot with NC State and I guess who am I missing? Well, whoever the fourth team is at this point.
I think it would be. I think I would have to go with Purdue. Like I said, I just think Zach Edey, as you mentioned, him being just such a huge 7 footer. I mean, he looks like he's of a bygone era. I just think that if anybody was going to be able to mess up UConn and there was going to be a matchup that UConn just could not, stop, just cannot slow down, it would be him and that Purdue team. But with that being said, I mean, this UConn team, they look like they're on cruise control and they're destroying people. So like, I don't see anybody beating them this year. Like I just don't see it. I don't know about you, but I really don't see it.
I don't know. I mean, I just never. I mean, maybe I'm not old enough to know, but I've never seen a team just run through the tournament like this. And I'm talking about in dominant fashion. Like there's just double-digit wins against some really, really excellent teams. So that's the only thing that scares me. Now, if I'm UConn, you haven't been in a close game in a while. So when you get in a close game and things get tight, how are you going to respond to that? But and I only say that because a lot of those guys weren't on the previous national championship team last year. So it's a little bit of a different group. But man, it'd be hard pressed for me to see them losing. But it's basketball, it's the tournament. You can lose in a 1-game scenario. So I'm never going to completely write it off. But I do think if there's a chance, it's going to be Purdue because of that big dude in the middle. And because Purdue plays so well around him. And they're a team that's also really experienced, and that stuff really, really helps in the tournament. I'm not sure if Alabama or NC State are going to have enough gas because those teams are really teams not expected to even be here, especially on NC State's end. So I'd be really, really shocked. But before the tournament ends, I did want to ask this question because the men's tournament, I'll say that. What's going to be your biggest? Now the national championship hasn't happened yet, so maybe this answer will change. But what's going to be your biggest takeaway from the tournament or storylines, right? Like if you were to describe, hey, to somebody like what's the story of the 2024 NCAA tournament, like March Madness, what's the big story here? Like I know there's some upsets. Like is there a player, a team, a storyline that you're like going to hold on to?
I think the biggest line is that this might be the pivotal moment where the women's tournament actually starts to become more popular than the men's tournament.
Wow,
I
that's
think
the
I sent you,
storyline. That's
yeah,
crazy.
like
Yeah.
that just might be like it's not a this that might be the storyline, not anything directly tied to the men's tournament, but like it's just that the women's is overtaking it. I think I sent to you guys earlier that the TV ratings for the Iowa LSU game, and this is the Elite Eight. Keep in mind, last night they had 12 million viewers. That was more than the women's championship last night. I mean last year. It was the second most watched women's games since 1983 when Cheryl Miller played. Like
Yeah, it's crazy.
I
That's
think
crazy.
that we're starting to get to the point where, and it seems like it's been happening the last couple of years. It's not specifically just this year, but it seems like more and more people at the water cooler are starting to talk about the women's tournament and they're keeping their eye on it. Like even my mom was kind of curious about the women's tournament. She told
Hmm.
me she went to the gym last night and all the females at the gym were talking about it. So she decided to look in and key in on it. And I just think that that's the main thing that I'm gonna take away from this year.
But I gotta play devil's advocate and ask this. It's a star driven sport. I
Yeah.
don't know what does this look like because I'm curious what the ratings are going to be when it's not Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. because I think that that's just a big part of the ratings. Now, again, it's bringing traffic towards the women's game in general, which is what we would want. But I'm saying it also, hopefully, you get some of those people coming for just Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, and they stay for the women's game in general. That's the goal. But you know, a lot of people are not staying for that. They just wanted to stay for that storyline. So that's the only thing. I think we're getting an influx of talent within women's basketball, which is great. But unless they're going to be stars that is going to be doing something completely out of the ordinary on the court, which is what Caitlin Clark did, which is shooting from 40 feet, looking like the female Steph Curry, or you're going to be just talking crazy and being dominant, which is Angel Reese and LSU, and a little bit, Caitlin Clark and them as well. If you're just a regular hooper, I mean, I don't know if Juju Watkins is going to have the same appeal as them two. Do you know what I mean? And even though Juju Watkins might be the best player of the three, you know what I'm saying?
But that's where I would say like games like last night when you watched Juju Watkins and Paige Beckers go at it, even though people might have tuned in to watch UConn, watch Gino coach again, and watch Paige, they saw Juju, and that helps put her on the scene. They saw her in a large game, like so. I think that that's what's going to have to happen. I think that you're just going to have other females come over and kind of take over the sport. Like let's just say South Carolina. I mean, let's just say Iowa makes it to the finals or whoever they play.
Hmm.
That's going to be a must see TV event. Whoever they're playing on the other side, maybe one of their players shows out, and now that's the player that everybody's keying in on next year, and they're having to watch. So I think it's just going to have to be kind of that sort of thing, kind of how we do the NBA. When Michael Jordan left, we picked Kobe. When LeBron leaves, we'll probably go to Anthony Edwards or you name it. I think that the women's college basketball, I think they could do the same thing.
Well, I hope so. I mean, the NBA's got a longer infrastructure and has been around longer, so that's the thing that helps them in that respect. And they have such a big core fan base as is. With the women's game, I hope I'm just curious if that this continues to the WNBA because the stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese goes to the WNBA. That would be cool to see. Now the college game, we'll see how that goes with Juju Watkins, and you still have a couple stars left. But man, that would be cool if they can take those same fans, and maybe Caitlin Clark is that person that can get those fans to bring them onto the WNBA. You know what I mean? So,
It is,
um,
and let me end at this one point. The numbers might go down, but the difference is, are the numbers next year and the year after going to be better than your previous year's averages? Because the numbers could dip down, but I mean, the NBA faced the same thing when Michael Jordan left, but nobody was saying the NBA was struggling, but the numbers went down. When a great player leaves, the numbers go down. I can almost guarantee you when LeBron finally decides to hang him up, that next year, maybe even 2 years after, the numbers overall would be kind of down for the NBA. That's just how this stuff works.
yeah, and the thing with the NBA is, in comparison to the WNBA, you still have the core fan base of the teams though, is what the like we don't, a lot of people are not tied to a specific team in the WNBA where they sometimes
No,
they are in basketball or men's basketball, and then of course like football. So that's the thing you need. At least with the colleges, people are going to be tied to colleges no matter what, because that's your alma mater, that's where you're from, whatever, right? Like you're going to be cheering for that.
that's a great point.
You're right. You're going to be cheering for your school's baseball team. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. So I think that's the thing. I'm hoping for the WNBA it happens. I do agree with your point though. It's okay if we have somewhat bit of a drop off, but as long as we're having some sort of growth, I think that's the important part. So I guess we can't
It
get
is,
greedy.
and
Guess we can't get greedy with how much growth.
yeah, it's growth. And I mean, hell, who knows? Caitlin Clark, when she gets out there and she goes against Sabrina, that might be the magic in Larry Bird because we always talk about how the NBA was struggling in the 80s. And then you got two superstars that came along and that changed the whole trajectory of the league.
Yeah, and capitalize on the Steph Curry and Sabrina Ionescu 3-point shootout. They're rumored to do Clay and Caitlin Clark next year. Like capitalize on stuff like that, right? Like that stuff helps too. So I'm excited to see it. I'm all for it. I mean, I'm not gonna go out and get my Caitlin Clark jersey yet, but I'm excited for it, and I'm excited to watch Juju and those players grow that are going to be in college too. And you said Paige or Stan, so that'd be dope as well. So quick before we get out of here, you still sticking with Iowa for the win to win it all?
Um,
Despite what your
Listen,
bracket
that
says,
South Carolina
I'm letting you
team,
giving you opportunity to change. Despite what your bracket says, like what your thoughts now? Who's winning it all?
I'm probably gonna say why I will like listen, South Carolina, they played some close games just like a couple of games. I know we've been talking about it. I mean, obviously, you're playing the best teams at this point, but they play some close games. And I think it's always hard for me in basketball just to pick against a superstar because it's so easy in basketball for one player just to change the whole landscape of this particular game. Like
Right.
they can control so much in one game. And if you're not talking about a series, you're just talking about a one game event, it's hard for me to go against a superstar. And that's what Caitlin Clark is. So I'm gonna stick with Iowa. How about you?
My head says South Carolina because I think they would just be really physical with Iowa and basically whoever is in there, and they don't got nobody for Cardoza anyway. But I'm gonna go UConn. I like the Paige Becker story. UConn. It's funny that we're actually talking about UConn because when we were growing up, UConn was just consistently being undefeated and winning championships. So it's like funny to be like UConn's actually like an underdog here. But I like the Page story. I know they've had some injuries with UConn, but I still confident with Gino Auriemma coaching those girls up in a one game scenario. So I'm gonna go UConn on the other end. For the men's, who you got?
You know what? I I I haven't been paying attention to the men's game all year, but like I said, I've been watching during March Madness, and I like what I'm seeing for Alabama. Like the way they're pushing the pace, they're getting out
Mm-hmm.
there, they're shooting quick threes, and then they had that big man down low.
Yep.
I can't think of his name right now off the top of my head. I think his name might be Grant something. Grant Nelson.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's able to shoot threes, and he's pretty mobile in the paint. Like I really like what I'm saying, and like they've been catching people off guard with their pace, and I think that UConn, I don't think they played anybody that pushes the pace like Alabama does. I mean, I think I'm gonna go with Alabama, man.
I like that Alabama team. I just don't think anybody's being UConn. I hate to go chalk like this, but I mean that UConn team. I mean they have got this thing like a well-oiled machine. And now, as a fan, I would love to see NC State and DJ Burns go ahead and get it done. You know what I'm saying? As a fan, that'd be dope. But and do it for the ACC, I guess. But I'm gonna go UConn winning it all. But I'm excited to watch the games. And this part of the tournament is actually more exciting to me than the beginning, as far as for the men's is concerned. So I'll be tuned into both games. So I want to thank everybody so much for joining us once again. Of course, like I mentioned in the beginning, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you could think of, go ahead and give the podcast a try. Recommend it to somebody, share it, do what you do. We're going to drop some shorts for you guys. And I can't thank you guys enough for always tuning in. And of course, on the way out, I will swing it to Trey.
Again, like you said, thank you so much for staying with us, guys. We really do appreciate it. Until next week, peace.